Okay, number 22, what additional piece of information do you need to prove that this shape, ABCD, is a parallelogram? So remember that we had some different conditions for proving that quadrilaterals were parallelograms. And right now, the only information that we have is that AD is parallel to BC. And so what additional information would we need to have? Well, one of the options is that you have both sets of opposite sides congruent. So AB would also have to be parallel to DC. That would be one of my options. So which one of these says that AB is parallel to DC? I'm going to say C. Now, I'm not only going to pick that as the answer because I see that the answer choices for D are A or B, and then E, B, or C. So because we know that C is true, I'm going to go ahead and mark this one off. It can't be D. And let's just keep going and check the other ones. Now, that could be a case, but one of my other conditions is that you had one set that was congruent, but that one set was also parallel. So I'm going to mark this. I'm going to mark this as this in red, but then I'm also going to mark if that one set was both parallel and congruent, then you could say this was a parallelogram. So what says that AD is congruent to BC? That's going to be B. So my answer choice is going to be E. This is how it could get a little bit tricky. Not only is it B, it also could be C. So I'm going to put answer choice E. It's like alphabet soup over here. And so that's going to be B or C. That just means that there was more than one option. All right, number 23, what value of X will make this quadrilateral a parallelogram? Well, I've got X minus 20 is pointing to this angle, and then next to that, so not opposite, but next to that is going to be 3X. And so what do we know about these angles? In a parallelogram, consecutive angles are supplementary. So I can take X minus 20, I can add it to 3X, and that should add up to 180. And so we're going to get 4X equals 200. So what is X? X is going to be 50, and it says what value of X? So if X is 50, this is a parallelogram. So that's going to be answer choice C. Answer choice C would make this a parallelogram. All right, let's go to our next problem, number 24. It says that this shape is a rhombus. Immediately when I see rhombus, remember what I do. When I see rhombus, I put, oh, y'all, that's not a pen. When I see rhombus, I go 4 right angles around the diagonals, and then I mark each sides of the diagonals as bisecting. So this red diagonal gets bisected, and this yellow diagonal bisects the angles as well. And so those yellow angles are going to be congruent, and those red angles are going to be congruent. And so it says, what is the value of X? Well, I have multiple options here. I can set any of the expressions that have an X on them that are in red equal to each other. So I'm just going to set 8X minus 3 equal to 5X plus 6. But I would also get the same thing if I use the 3X plus 12. And so 3X equals 9. So X equals 3. It says, what is the value of X? I just found it. X is 3. So that's going to be B. B. All right, number 25 says it's a rhombus again. What are the values of X and Y? Now, in this one, it's not pointing to angles. It's pointing to side lengths. So when I see the word rhombus, immediately I go ahead and add these 4 right angles. I go ahead and say, hey, a rhombus has 4 congruent sides. So what can I do with these two expressions for X? I can set X plus 5 equal to 2X because those sides are not only opposite to each other, but even if they weren't opposite, they'd still be congruent. So X is going to be equal to 5. So which of these does not say X equals 5? These 3. So I get to go ahead and mark out A, C, and E. It's none of those. So 50-50 shot here. Let's look at where does it have Y's. Okay, so we've got a Y right here. I believe that the Y is pointing there. Okay, we've got a Y right here. We've got 2X there. So let's go ahead and plug that in. What is X? X was 5. So what is 2 times 5? That's 10. So we're trying to find Y, which is this piece right here. And then we've got an 8 right here. So we know that since this is a rhombus, I've got a right triangle living right here. So I can use Pythagorean theorem. I can do y squared plus 8 squared should be equal to 10 squared. And so I do 10 squared minus 8 squared, which is 100 minus 64, which gives me 36 for y squared, which means that y is going to be equal to 6. So each of these pieces would be 6. So what is y? Y is 6, so it's going to be answer choice D. 25 would be D. All right, what is true about the diagonals of a rectangle? We know that the diagonals of a rectangle are always, always, always going to be congruent. That is one of our properties of a rectangle. Is it true that they bisect each other? Yes, because it's a parallelogram. They're not perpendicular. We know that for sure. And so then it says both A and B Obviously, B is not true, so it's not that one. So it's got to be both A and C. Because both of these were true, I'm going to put letter choice E. 26 would be E. All right, in rectangle ABCD. So let's go ahead and just draw it out. If in doubt, draw it out. ABCD. It's a rectangle, so A, B, C, D. A to B is 1/2 x plus 6. And then C to D is 5/2 x minus 2. Those are the opposite sides in a rectangle. So what do we know about the opposite sides in a rectangle? Those are going to be congruent to each other. So I can set 1/2 x plus 6 equal to 5/2 x minus 2. I could easily turn those into decimals if I wanted, or I could just multiply this entire thing through by 2 since those have common denominators. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply this whole thing through by 2, and that's going to give me x plus 12 equals 5x minus 4, and I'm going to get 4x equals 16, so x is going to be equal to 4. I believe they just asked me to solve for x, and they do. So what is my answer? My answer is A. I also could have put those in decimals. 0.5x plus 6 equals 2.5x minus 2, and worked it that way. I could also just work with fractions. 5/2 minus 1/2 is going to be 4/2, which is 2x, so you could do it that way as well. So then 2x would be equal to 8. X is still going to be equal to 4. So multiple ways to work that problem. All right, I'm going to stop here. The perimeter of a square. Remember, when you think perimeter, you think SpongeBob SquarePants, bring it around town. So I'm going to draw a square, and I'm going to show that the outside 4 pieces of these square, this is a perimeter of 72. So what does that mean about each side length? 72. I can divide that by how many sides are in a square? 4. So it's going to be 4. That's going to give me a side length of 18. So every single side in the square is going to be 18 each. 18, 18, 18, and 18. Okay. N to O, so this said M, N, O, P. So one of these sides is 2x plus 6, N to O. So I'm going to highlight that real quick. We already know that that's 18, so I can set 2x plus 6 equal to 18. And so I'm going to get 2x equals 12. So x is going to be equal to 6. What is the value of x, it says? X is 6, so that's going to be C. Now, it could ask me to go back and plug stuff in, but it did not. So I will start on 29 in the next video.